Go ahead and hinge down, get yourself on your knees. There's going to be another video explaining some of these moves, how to do them in an easier manner if these are too tough, and maybe to make them a little more advanced. But for now, try this out, see if you can hang. I'm going to start on the knees, what we call a narrow founder. One trick here is the knees are squeezing using the adductors while the feet are dorsiflexed, but also a little wider than the knees. This helps really activate the hip hinge, really helps pull the hips out of external rotation and bring them into internal rotation. And there shouldn't be much pressure in the toes. You're shifting your weight forward, almost should feel like you're falling over. If you see this video cut, it's because I probably did fall over, and that's okay. You're gonna have that, just grab yourself with your hands. But that's where you want your weight to be. So there should be very little weight in the toes themselves, more of the weight's in the knees, and that just helps us activate those hip flexor muscles that we want to get, that psoas muscle. So we're adding a little rotation at the top here. You see the hands going into the sphere of tension. A little left, a little right. You're doing to the left, to the right. You might notice that one side is a little more restricted. And you want to engage, anchor, really squeeze those knees together as we come up. So you're pulling that sacrum down as you're driving the arms up at the same time. That's kind of like that Chinese finger trap idea. Both ends of your spine pulling at once. The rotation can really help correct a lot of imbalances we have in the pelvic floor and those hips and all this hip musculature. Coming to the sphere of tension out front, just take a few breaths here. All your breaths should be in through your nose, out through your mouth, really engaging from that diaphragm. So the diaphragm, pelvic floor, working together as one. Bring your right leg out, push your right arm into your right knee, so it's isometric. Elbows pushing into the knee. At the same time, you're using that adductor again. Take a few breaths at the top, and then switching it up. Left leg out, left arm pushing into the left knee. You're gonna thread that arm through before going up. And it should be hard to straighten that elbow. You're just taking a few breaths there at the top, using that isometric where the knee and the elbow are continually pushing into each other. And then you're just gonna walk yourself back up and do a little bit of a stretch here. So we're walking the fingertips out in front of you as you're hinging the hips back, trying not to have too much curve in the spine or too much curve in the neck. Try to keep your spine as little straight as you can. Lots of tension in the hamstring here. Try a little squeeze in the inner thigh, squeezing the thighs together, walking those fingers out and just breathing into that position. Slide those hands up slowly, kind of using your hips to pull you up instead of just rounding. Then you're going to find a couch or a chair, something like this, and you're going to bring, just like that same position, the knees together, feet a little wider, and dorsiflex. That means the toes are tucked underneath you. You're just going to slide down to your elbows if you can. If this is hard, you can just do a regular child's pose on the ground. But this is going to really open up the space, decompress you. What we're doing is we're, with each breath, kind of pushing, hinging a little deeper with each breath. So you're relaxing on the inhale and then pushing a little hard. You're pushing the ground away from you and then pushing your whole spine and kind of folding yourself over into your legs. And that's going to just open up those hips even more, adding that decompression element. Then we're going to widen the knees a little bit, dorsiflex still. Still try to keep those toes, the feet out a little wider than the knees. We just brought the knees out a little bit more. Later in pregnancy, this is probably what you want because it's going to be harder with that belly. Might be pushing in the inner thighs, so you might not be able to get that narrow founder position. But same thing here. 5 breaths. Inhale, exhale, drive a little deeper, push with your hands. You might notice in this position the hands are a little wider than the elbows, or at least level with the elbows. That's what you want for these first 2 positions. And the last one, we're just doing the classic relaxations, where the feet come up and you can actually bring your hands together, and that's going to allow you to sink a little bit deeper into this position. Just be kind of lazy with it, just decompress. You don't have to do those big forceful decompression breaths. So here comes the feet, hands together. You'll notice you'll be able to sink a little bit deeper. The head can almost get on the ground, and that's just going to open everything up there. Again, you could do the same 3 moves in child's pose, just on the floor. But work your way up. Try to push the ground away a little bit just to strengthen your arms so eventually you can get that decompression element doing it off a couch like that, because that's really going to be the most beneficial, is adding that little bit of decompression with gravity working with you. So we're going to do some squats. we're going to do 5 squats here where the hands, the forearms are pushing in against the knees and the knees are isometrically pushing out. Try to get a little deeper with each squat. And your last one, you're going to actually hook those elbows all the way around the knee. Go into either a sphere of tension or just grasp the hands together, and you're going to push the knees out against the elbows. Not holding for very long. We'll do that later at the end of the workout. Same thing here, just in reverse. So now make like some fists. Your forearms are going to be pushing out against the knees. The knees are going to be squeezing in. This is going to challenge you in both directions. You're probably going to notice that one of these is harder compared to the other. Just keep working it. And then holding that isometric squeeze at the bottom. And just hold that for a breath or two. All right, then we're going to do the Cossack Squat. So you're going to have your legs really wide as comfortable. And then you allow your knee to follow your foot off to one side. Hands are behind the head in the sphere of tension. You're just going to extend them as you get deeper. We're going to repeat this one later, so you're just kind of easing into it now. Keeping that motion in the hips. You can let that knee bend. You're pushing the side that you're lunging to. You're pushing that outer thigh as far as you can off to the side. And you're actually kind of rolling in the opposite leg to get that adductor. So it switches. You might notice one side a little more restricted. So you can actually do focused squats here on just one side. If one side's really restricted, that ankle's really restricted, you can just do that. That's one really effective to take out torsion and restriction in the pelvic floor. So we're going to lay on the back. We're going to bring your big toes together. And we're going to have the heels a little bit apart, about an inch. And then you're going to go squeeze your knees together. And then we're going to do what's called a leg trace. So the hands are going to be down, pushing into the ground, and you're going to be sliding that heel up above the kneecap. And then you're going to push a little bit there with your hand, inner thigh, pushing against the hand. Do a couple on the other side, just 1 or 2. That's all you really need here. Just to really kind of activate that internal tracing of the hip, getting that hip out of external rotation, reminding you where it needs to be while you're doing this next exercise, which is the anchored bridge. So really it's the same position, inner thigh squeezing, using the hands to help you push your hips just maybe an inch off the ground, not even that. And you should really feel it almost like you're pulling with your heels to lift your hips up. We're not bending the spine, we're keeping that spine really straight. Take about 5 breaths in the first position and then go into sphere of tension, just like the arms are moving up, 1 breath at a time. Do another 5 right there, trying to get some length each time you breathe. If you're really feeling advanced, you can put your heels up on a couch and do the same position just to add a little bit of decompression. Next, we're going to go keep that same final position with your hands over your head. Raise your legs a little bit off the ground, and then you're going to roll to the left. Don't squash that belly now. Roll to the right. Not pushing off with your arms, not pushing off with your legs. This challenges, it seems really silly, but this is actually one of the most beneficial exercises in this. It's forcing you to use essentially only your spine. So it can take a lot of torsional elements out of this, but also just straight up posture correction. A lot of tests have showed that standing flat to a wall, doing this a couple times. Then you're going to roll, come into essentially what we call the 8-point plank. So you're trying to push away. This might even look similar to what you might be doing if you can't do the inverted child's pose. This is similar to what you could do there. Just get some strength. Doing a little bit of what we call the 8-point plank, just a little decompression there, pushing up. Do a little stretch as you get up, same thing. Trace the hands up the legs slowly, using your hips to lift you. Next, we're going to do a squat. So whatever's comfortable there, you can go a little wider, a little more narrow. We're going to do the hands on the outside. Sphere of tension, fingers clasped together, whatever is comfortable for you. Pushing those knees out into the elbows. And we're going to try to hold this. Feet, keep your heels down. We're going to try to hold this for 5 to 10 really big decompression breaths. Take your time with this one. This one might take a little bit to get used to. Might be down there for just 1 or 2 breaths, but that's okay. Just keep working on this every day. And then we're going to do the opposite. Give yourself a break, shake it off, and you're going to go down again, just switching it up. So we're going to have the arms on the inner thighs, sphere of tension with the fingers, knees driving into the elbows, elbows driving back, isometric. This really can help you posture up and pop your chest, keeping that spine straight as you can, really squeezing. Again, you might find that one of these is harder than the other. Try both for now. It's going to challenge you both ways. It's not about getting too deep in this squat. It's about finding that tension, keeping that hip hinge, because we don't want to bow that low back out either. After you're done with that, we're going to finish up with the Cossack Squat. Now we're just going to spend time on one side, trying to get deeper as we go. So go off to your left. With each breath, kind of come back and then down, sink a little deeper each time. So inhale, ease off of it. Exhale, sink a little deeper. Inhale, ease off. Exhale, sink a little bit deeper. And just feel which side is tougher for you. If you already know what your rotational imbalances are, you can just focus on one side. Especially here, driving that outer thigh outwards and then rolling that foot on the straight leg inwards to hit that inner thigh. And that can really help ease a lot of pain. Just end with a little bit of a stretch there, what we call the wide founder here. You can do a little bit of a gorilla lift, which is just raising one arm in the air, and that just pushes that pressure back onto your hips a little bit. Breathing, slide those hands back up, use your hips to lift you, and you are done.